The man who walked out different, he stood in the prison chapel holding a knife made from melted plastic and metal scraps. And everyone thought he was about to prove that rehabilitation was a lie. The guards froze. The other inmates backed away. For 5 years, Marcus Hale had been the most feared man inside Ironwood State Prison. Now he was pointing that homemade blade at the prison warden. And then he said something no one expected. "I'm not here to hurt him," Marcus said. "I'm here to show you what this place almost turned me into." The room went silent. The cameras were rolling. The state officials were watching. And what happened next would change the future of prison rehabilitation programs across the country. But to understand that moment, the blade, the silence, the shock, we have to go back to the beginning. Before the chapel, before the programs, before Marcus Hale decided he would either break the system or let it break him. 5 years earlier, Marcus arrived at Ironwood in handcuffs. He was 26 years old, tall, strong, quiet. He had been sentenced to 12 years for armed robbery and assault after a convenience store job went wrong. No one died, but someone got hurt, and that was enough. The judge called him a danger to the community. Marcus didn't argue. He didn't speak. He didn't look at his mother when they led him away. Ironwood State Prison sat in the middle of dry land and broken roads. Gray walls, rusted fences, guard towers watching from every corner. Inside, there were two types of men: those who planned to survive, and those who planned to control. On Marcus's first night, a man named Darnell approached him in the yard. "You knew?" Darnell asked. Marcus nodded. "You got a crew?" Marcus shook his head. Darnell smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "You do now?" That was how it started. Prison is its own world. There are rules that are not written down. If you don't follow them, you pay. Marcus followed. He lifted weights. He stayed quiet. He did favors. And slowly, he became someone people didn't mess with. But prison doesn't just lock your body. It changes your mind. After a year, Marcus barely remembered what it felt like to walk down a street without looking over his shoulder. He stopped calling home. He stopped writing letters. He stopped thinking about life outside. Then something strange happened. Ironwood announced a new program. The warden, Thomas Avery, stood in the cafeteria with a group of reporters and said, "We are launching a full rehabilitation initiative. Education, therapy, job training, real change." The inmates laughed. Programs came and went all the time. Most were just for show. But this one was different. It had real funding, real teachers, real counselors, and something called restorative justice circles. Marcus wasn't interested. Darnell warned him anyway. "Those programs," Darnell said, "they're traps. They make you soft. Soft men don't last long in here." Marcus agreed, until the day his younger brother wrote him a letter. It was short. "Mom's sick. She asks about you. I told her you're taking classes. Please make that true." Marcus read that letter 5 times. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he signed up for the GED class. The classroom was small. 10 plastic chairs. 1 whiteboard. A teacher named Ms. Alvarez who spoke like she believed every word mattered. "Here," she said, handing Marcus a workbook. "You're not stupid. You just stopped learning." No one had talked to him like that in years. The first weeks were hard. The other inmates tested him. "You think you better than us now?" one asked. Marcus didn't answer. He kept showing up. Then came group counseling. They sat in a circle. No guards inside. Just a therapist named Dr. Collins. "Tell me about the first time you felt powerless," Dr. Collins said. Silence. Then one man spoke. Then another. When it was Marcus's turn, he almost walked out. But instead, he said something simple. "My father left." That was all. But it was the first time he had said it out loud. And something shifted. Not overnight. Not in a big way. Just a crack in the wall he had built inside himself. Months passed. Marcus earned his GED. He started a carpentry workshop. He built a wooden table for the chapel. He even joined a restorative justice meeting where victims of crime spoke about impact. He didn't meet his own victim, but he listened. And for the first time, he understood that his actions had a ripple effect far beyond that store. Word spread through the prison. Marcus was changing. Some respected it. Others didn't. Darnell didn't like it at all. "You're forgetting who you are," Darnell told him one night in the yard. "No," Marcus said. "I'm remembering." That answer cost him. The next week, someone trashed the carpentry workshop. Wood smashed. Tools missing. A note left behind. "Programs don't protect you." The administration investigated. No one talked. Marcus could have retaliated. Everyone expected him to. Instead, he cleaned up the shop. Alone. That's when Warden Avery noticed him. "You're becoming the face of this program," the warden said during a private meeting. "How would you feel about speaking to state officials next month?" Marcus stared at him. "Why me?" "Because people listen to you." Marcus almost said no. Then he thought about his mother, about the letter, about the man he used to be. He agreed. The day of the visit arrived. Politicians, reporters, cameras. They toured the classrooms. They filmed the workshop. They asked Marcus questions. "Do rehabilitation programs really work?" one reporter asked. Marcus looked straight into the lens. "They only work if you let them. And if the system actually cares." It was honest. Too honest. Later that night, Darnell confronted him in the chapel. "You're helping them," Darnell said. "They don't care about us. They care about headlines." Marcus stayed calm. "Maybe. But if even one guy walks out better than he came in, it matters." Darnell stepped closer. "You think they'll protect you when this goes wrong?" Marcus didn't answer. Because deep down, he wasn't sure. 2 weeks later, a guard found contraband in Marcus's cell. A sharpened piece of metal, hidden under his mattress. Marcus swore it wasn't his. But in prison, proof doesn't always matter. The Rehabilitation Board suspended him from all programs pending investigation. The workshop closed. The counseling circle paused. The state officials pulled funding reviews. Rumors spread fast. "See," Darnell whispered to others. He was playing both sides. Marcus felt the walls closing in again. Old instincts returned. Anger, paranoia, the feeling that change was weakness. Then came the worst blow. His mother died. The request to attend the funeral was denied due to the ongoing investigation. Marcus sat alone in his cell that night. No programs, no classes, no visits, just silence. He stared at the concrete wall and wondered if Darnell had been right all along. Maybe the system didn't want him to change. Maybe it needed him to fail. The investigation dragged on. Weeks turned into months. No fingerprints on the weapon. No clear evidence. But suspicion stayed. Then something unexpected happened. A young inmate named Luis requested to speak to Internal Affairs. Luis had been in the GED class with Marcus. He was small, quiet, always nervous. In a recorded statement, Luis said he saw someone plant the weapon. He named Darnell. The prison erupted. Darnell denied everything. Called Luis a liar. Called Marcus a traitor. The administration searched Darnell's cell. They found matching scrap metal and a list of names. Marcus's name was circled. The charges against Marcus were dropped. He was reinstated into the program. But something had changed. The conflict wasn't hidden anymore. It was open and dangerous. That brings us back to the chapel. 5 years after Marcus first walked through Ironwood's gates. The cameras were there again. Another state review. Another speech. But this time, Marcus wasn't just a student. He was a mentor. He helped run the carpentry shop. He led group discussions. He was months away from parole. Then, in the middle of the presentation, he pulled out the homemade blade. Gasps filled the room. Guards reached for weapons. Darnell, recently transferred back after a short stint in solitary, stood near the back, watching. Marcus raised the blade. Not at Darnell. Not at the guards. At the warden. "I found this in the workshop," Marcus said loudly. Another plant. Another setup. The room froze. "If this program is real," Marcus continued, "then you don't hide problems. You face them." He placed the blade on the table in front of the cameras. "Someone is trying to sabotage this again." All eyes turned slowly toward Darnell. But Darnell wasn't there anymore. His spot in the back of the chapel was empty. The side door was swinging open, and the guard stationed there was unconscious on the floor. Marcus stared at the doorway. Because if Darnell had escaped during a state visit, this wasn't just about rehabilitation anymore. It was about to become a national scandal, and Marcus Hale's name would be right in the middle of it. The prison sirens screamed across the yard. Red lights flashed against gray walls. Guards ran toward the open side door of the chapel. Darnell was gone, and the unconscious guard lay on the floor, breathing but shaken. Marcus stood frozen beside the table where he had placed the homemade blade. He had tried to prove a point. Instead, he had walked straight into a disaster. Within minutes, Ironwood State Prison went into full lockdown. Cells sealed. Yards cleared. Phones shut down. The visiting state officials were rushed out under security escort. The cameras that had been there to film a success story now captured something else: fear. Warden Avery looked at Marcus with a face that was hard to read. "You understand what this means?" the warden asked quietly. Marcus nodded. It meant headlines. It meant investigations. It meant that every critic who said rehabilitation programs were soft and dangerous would feel proven right. And it meant one more thing. If Darnell was out there, he wasn't just running from prison. He was running from Marcus. The next hours felt like days. Search teams spread into the dry fields beyond the fence. Local police set up roadblocks. Helicopters circled overhead. Inside the prison, interviews began immediately. Marcus was taken into a small room with a metal table. Two investigators sat across from him. "Did you know about the escape?" one asked. "No. Did you help plan it?" "No. Did you distract staff with that blade?" Marcus clenched his jaw. "I found the weapon in the workshop. I reported it in front of everyone because I thought transparency mattered." One investigator leaned forward. "Or because you needed a scene big enough to cover for someone else." Marcus stared back. "If I wanted to help him, I wouldn't have exposed the weapon at all." The room went quiet. The investigators wrote notes. Outside that room, the rehabilitation program hung by a thread. News outlets were already calling it the Ironwood failure. Politicians who once praised the initiative began to distance themselves. Funding was paused. Public opinion shifted overnight. One escape. That was all it took. Meanwhile, Darnell moved through the outskirts of the county. He had worked in maintenance before. He knew blind spots. He knew schedules. He knew which fences were older. But escape is only the first step. Staying free is harder. By nightfall, law enforcement released his photo to the public. Darnell wasn't subtle. He had always believed strength meant dominance. And now he had something to prove. Back inside Ironwood, tension grew. Inmates whispered. Some blamed Marcus. "If you hadn't made that speech," one muttered, "none of this would have happened." Others defended him. He tried to fix it the right way. The rehabilitation classes were suspended. The carpentry shop was locked. Dr. Collins' counseling sessions were canceled. Everything Marcus had worked toward felt like it was collapsing. Warden Avery requested a private meeting. "You were right," the warden said. "There was sabotage." Marcus didn't feel victory. "I didn't want this," he replied. "I know," Avery said. "But now the question is bigger than one inmate. The state is reviewing whether this program survives at all." Marcus looked at the warden carefully. "What are you asking me?" "I'm asking if you still believe in it." The question hit harder than any accusation. Did he still believe? After the weapon in his cell? After his mother's death? After this escape? Marcus thought about the first day in GED class. About Luis speaking up when it mattered. About the table he built with his own hands. "Yes," Marcus said finally. "But belief isn't enough." "What is?" Avery asked. "Proof." 2 days later, proof arrived, but not in the way anyone expected. Darnell broke into a small gas station 30 miles from Ironwood. The clerk recognized him from the news. Darnell panicked and fled before police arrived. No one was seriously harmed, but the incident confirmed something important. He wasn't trying to disappear quietly. He was unraveling. And unraveling people make mistakes. During the manhunt, investigators uncovered something else. Phone records from inside Ironwood. A correctional officer had made several unusual calls in the weeks leading up to the escape. Calls that matched numbers connected to Darnell's outside contacts. The officer's name was Officer Grant. He had worked at Ironwood for 8 years. Clean record. Quiet. Reliable. When questioned, he denied involvement. But surveillance footage told a different story. Grant had been stationed near the side door during the chapel presentation. The same door Darnell used. And the guard found unconscious? He wasn't seriously injured, just disoriented. Medical reports suggested he had been struck, but lightly, like someone who needed to look attacked. The pieces began to shift. This wasn't just inmate sabotage. It might have been inside help. The news broke fast. Possible staff involvement in Ironwood escape. Public trust fell even lower. Critics argued that rehabilitation programs created opportunities for manipulation. Supporters argued the opposite, that corruption, not rehabilitation, was the real threat. Marcus watched the debate unfold on a small TV in the common area. He felt powerless again. But something was different this time. He didn't feel rage. He felt clarity. If Officer Grant was involved, then Darnell's sabotage had a partner. Someone who benefited from chaos. Someone who may have wanted the program to fail. Marcus requested a meeting with Internal Affairs. "I think I know why Darnell targeted the workshop," Marcus said. The investigator raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "The workshop keeps detailed logs. Materials. Tools. Staff access times. If someone wanted to move contraband or manipulate inventory, that room would expose it." The investigator paused. You're suggesting the workshop threatened someone? Marcus nodded. Maybe the programs weren't just changing inmates. Maybe they were exposing weaknesses in the system. It was a dangerous thought, because if true, it meant the fight wasn't just against violence. It was against corruption. 3 days later, Officer Grant was arrested. Financial records showed unexplained deposits. Messages linked him to outside associates connected to Darnell. The unconscious guard admitted he had been told to play along. Grant had promised him protection. The story shifted again. Rehabilitation wasn't the failure. Oversight was. The state reopened its review. But Darnell was still missing, and he was running out of options. Then came the call. Marcus was called to the warden's office. On the desk sat a printed note, found taped to a highway sign near the county line. It read, "Programs don't change men. Power does." The handwriting matched Darnell's prison letters. Below the message was one more line. "Tell Marcus I'll prove it." Marcus felt a chill. This wasn't about escape anymore. It was personal. Warden Avery studied him carefully. "We believe he may try to contact you indirectly," Avery said. "Through family, through media, through anyone connected to the program." Marcus's brother still lived in the same town. The thought hit hard. "Can you protect them?" Marcus asked. "We're notifying local authorities." But protection wasn't certainty, and Darnell had nothing left to lose. That night, Marcus lay awake in his cell. He thought about the first day he arrived at Ironwood, about the anger that fueled him, about the version of himself that once believed control was everything. Darnell represented that version. The part of prison that said change was weakness. The part that thrived on fear. If Darnell succeeded, if he hurt someone or framed the program again, it wouldn't just damage Ironwood. It would send a message across the country. Rehabilitation doesn't work. And thousands of inmates in programs like this would lose their chance. Marcus stared at the ceiling. For the first time, he understood something clearly. Rehabilitation isn't about comfort. It's about confrontation. Not with other people. With yourself. But what happens when the past refuses to let go? The next morning, news broke. A car registered to Marcus's brother was found abandoned near a rural highway. No sign of forced entry. No sign of struggle. Just an empty vehicle. And a note on the dashboard. "Tell Marcus I'm still in control." The phone in the warden's office rang at the same time. State officials were demanding answers. Media trucks were gathering outside. And Marcus felt the weight of a choice he never expected to face. Stay inside the system, or step into the chaos Darnell had created. Because this wasn't just about one escape anymore. It was about whether change could survive when tested by fear. And as helicopters lifted off again into the gray sky, no one knew which man would define the future of Ironwood State Prison. The one who believed in power, or the one who believed in change. The abandoned car sat alone on the side of the highway. Wind pushed dust across the road. Police lights flashed quietly in the early morning dark. Marcus watched from a patrol vehicle parked behind the scene. His hands were cuffed, not because he was under arrest, but because protocol required it during outside transport. His brother's car door was open. Inside, the note lay on the dashboard. "Tell Marcus I'm still in control." No blood. No signs of a fight. No broken glass. That was the first small relief. If Darnell wanted fear, he had created it. But if he wanted violence, he hadn't shown it yet. Marcus swallowed hard. "Is he alive?" Marcus asked the detective standing beside him. "We don't know," she said honestly. That answer cut deeper than anything else. Back at Ironwood, tension reached its highest point. The state governor announced a temporary suspension of all prison rehabilitation expansions pending investigation. Headlines called it the Ironwood Crisis. Critics said the program had empowered dangerous inmates. Supporters said corruption had almost destroyed something that was working. Inside the prison, the mood shifted again. Some inmates whispered that Darnell had proven his point. Others looked at Marcus differently now, not as a student, not as a mentor, but as a symbol, a test case. If Marcus broke, the program broke with him. Warden Avery met with him in a secured room. "Your brother's phone last pinged near an old storage facility 12 miles from the highway," Avery said. "Law enforcement is preparing a search." Marcus's chest tightened. "I need to go," he said. "That's not how this works." Marcus leaned forward. "You told me proof matters. If Darnell thinks he can drag this program down through me, he's wrong." The warden hesitated. Then he did something no one expected. He approved a supervised transport. Marcus would accompany investigators, still in custody, to the search site. It was risky. But so was everything else. The storage facility stood near a line of dry trees. Metal doors. Broken windows. Silence. Officers moved carefully. Marcus stayed between two deputies. Inside one of the units, they found Marcus's brother, tied to a chair, shaken, but alive. Relief washed over Marcus so fast he almost fell. His brother looked at him with wide eyes. He said he wanted you to see, his brother whispered. He said you needed to choose. Choose what? Before anyone could ask more, a noise echoed from deeper inside the building. Footsteps. Running. Darnell burst through a side exit. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't need one. The chaos was his weapon. Officers chased him through the brush. Marcus strained against his restraints. Let me talk to him, Marcus shouted. But the deputies held him back. Sirens roared. A helicopter circled overhead. Darnell ran until he couldn't. They caught him near a dried riverbed. No dramatic fight. No final attack. Just exhaustion. When officers placed him in handcuffs, he didn't resist. He just smiled. Back at Ironwood, Darnell was placed in maximum security. No yard access. No group contact. The system had tightened around him. But the damage he caused was still spreading. Public hearings were scheduled. The governor demanded testimony from prison leadership. Warden Avery asked Marcus if he would speak. Again, this time, not as a success story, but as evidence. Marcus agreed. The hearing room was quiet. Lawmakers sat behind long desks. Cameras recorded everything. Marcus wore a standard prison uniform. No suit. No special treatment. He spoke clearly. I did wrong, he began. That's why I'm here. Prison is supposed to hold people accountable. But if that's all it does, then we send them back the same. He described the GED class, the therapy sessions, the carpentry workshop. He didn't hide the sabotage. He didn't excuse the escape. He didn't pretend the system was perfect. Officer corruption nearly destroyed the program, Marcus said. Not rehabilitation. One lawmaker leaned forward. And what about Darnell? She asked. Doesn't he prove that some people can't change? Marcus paused. The room waited. Darnell proves that change is a choice, Marcus said. Programs can't force it, but they can make it possible. Silence filled the chamber. It wasn't applause. It wasn't approval. It was consideration. Weeks passed. Darnell faced additional charges related to the escape and kidnapping. Officer Grant accepted a plea deal for corruption and aiding an escape. The unconscious guard admitted his role publicly. Accountability moved forward. And slowly, the state announced its decision. The Ironwood Rehabilitation Program would continue, with stricter oversight, expanded transparency, and independent audits. It wasn't a perfect victory, but it survived. Months later, Marcus stood once again in the prison chapel. This time, no cameras, no officials, just a small group of new inmates sitting in plastic chairs. He held up a simple wooden box he had built in the workshop. This box is made from broken pieces, Marcus said. Every board was damaged before we used it. The inmates listened quietly. We didn't pretend the cracks weren't there. We worked around them, strengthened them. That's what this place can be, if you let it. One of the younger inmates raised his hand. What if someone tries to tear it down again? Marcus looked at him. They will, he said honestly. Change makes people uncomfortable. But tearing something down doesn't prove it was weak. Sometimes it proves it mattered. The room stayed quiet. And for the first time since the escape, Marcus felt something steady inside himself. Not anger. Not fear. Responsibility. A year later, Marcus walked out of Ironwood on parole. No headlines this time. No cameras. Just a small bag of belongings. His brother waited outside. So did Dr. Collins. And Warden Avery. You earned this, the warden said. The final report on Ironwood was published 6 months later. Recidivism rates had dropped among program participants. Education completion rates increased. Job placements improved. Not every story ended well. Not every inmate changed. But enough did to matter. Darnell remained in maximum security. He refused counseling, refused classes, refused responsibility. His name slowly faded from the news. Marcus's didn't. He began speaking at community centers, then at state panels, then at national conferences on prison reform. He never claimed to be a hero. He never claimed the system was fixed. He only said one thing again and again. Rehabilitation doesn't erase the past. It builds a different future. Years later, a young man approached Marcus after a speaking event. I was at Ironwood when all that happened, the man said. I didn't believe in any of it. Marcus smiled gently. And now? The man held up a carpentry business card. I own this now. Marcus nodded. Proof doesn't always come in loud moments. Sometimes it comes in quiet ones. A job, a second chance, a choice made differently. The story of Ironwood didn't end with an escape. It didn't end with a scandal. It didn't end with one man's change. It became something larger. A reminder that prisons are not just buildings of concrete and steel. They are crossroads. Every person inside stands at one. Power, or change, control, or responsibility. The blade Marcus once placed on that chapel table was never used to harm anyone. It became evidence, not of violence, but of a system tested, and a choice made in the open. Because real rehabilitation isn't soft. It isn't easy. It isn't guaranteed. It is a daily decision. And sometimes, the most powerful act inside a prison is walking out different. Thanks for watching. Kindly like and subscribe for more crime documentary stories.